and welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about John Lennon. Thank you for listening.
Hello, Cleo.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
I'm excellent, actually, at the moment. How are you?
I feel fine.
Hey!
Did you love the book?
Yes, loved it. Shall we say what it is?
Oh, yeah, say what it is.
It's a book about John Lennon, written by Cynthia Lennon, his first wife.
Yeah.
She tells us that she wrote a book when he was still alive that really pissed off him and Yoko, but she didn't tell half the truth because she actually didn't want to upset him. So this one is not that one. This is the one full of all of the truth.
Well, her truth.
Her truth, yeah.
Her version of events. Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting because this is a book called John and it's about John. I feel like I know Cynthia, but then as I was going back through it, correct me if I'm wrong, but she doesn't tell us like even her surname before she married John Lennon.
That is true.
So I don't know her family name. So we kind of meet her when she's about 16, 17, when she meets John.
That's true.
We learn a bit about John's childhood, etc., but we don't learn really anything about her.
Yeah.
Too much.
But that sums her up because she takes the back seat. She always has. She was brought up that the boys were more important and you take a secondary role. Like, you know, the boys eat the bacon, she gets the rind. It's like, that's who she is. So even in this book, she's putting him first and she wasn't made for the limelight. She's an ordinary person. That's why it all went wrong. Whereas actually John sought the limelight. So he was completely different.
Yeah, did you know about her before you found this book?
No, I didn't.
Isn't that interesting?
I just didn't know bugger all. I was never sure Sean Lennon's Julian Lennon because he seemed so much older, and I don't know. I was just confused by the whole lot. It absolutely has floored me how I didn't know who the Beatles individually were as people. And I just assumed I did because they're so mega famous. And I'm reading all their backstories going, you what? He did what? His mum died, his dad, what? Like, did you know?
No, I didn't. And I consider myself a Beatles fan, but I think it's that thing. We were born way after they were massively successful.
Yeah, we were.
So in a way, we got the Beatles in the 80s. We got the solo careers.
Yeah.
That's what we experienced growing up. And the Beatles had happened before. So we knew about Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. We knew about John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Actually, I didn't really know that they had wives and partners.
No, I
before.
didn't.
I mean, I kind of did, obviously, because I knew that Julian Lennon wasn't Yoko Ono's son.
Yeah, but I didn't know who he was. I never questioned it.
Yeah. So this was a real revelation, this book.
Yeah, it really was. By the way, I phoned up my parents because I thought, I wonder if they know all this stuff. Or because without the internet, did they know, that this is absolutely their era. In fact, 2 of my aunts went to the Cavern to see the Beatles.
Oh, my God.
Before they were massive. Yeah, they actually went.
Wow.
Which is very clever of them. But no, so I phoned my parents and I said, can you tell me all the background facts of the Beatles? And they told me. They knew all of it. Yeah, they knew everything.
Okay.
They knew about the mum. They knew about the aunt. They knew about the Scottish aunt. They knew everything. Yeah, because they were so massive. Mm-hmm. At the time, everyone knew all of their stories. But it's like we came in a bit later and it's like, oh, wow, their music is still epic. It transformed everything. How many autobiographies have we read where the musician became a musician because they heard the Beatles? At least half. It's unbelievable. And I think, wow, it's time our generation knew more about them because they are that important. They changed the music landscape.
Yeah, right.
They really did.
We're talking too much. We need to get on with it.
Let's go.
Come on. Let's come together and do it. No.
No.
John, hang on. I usually begin by saying John Lennon, but should I be saying Cynthia Lennon because it's her book?
Yeah, you could.
Well, it's about John, isn't it?
It is. John Winston Lennon.
The book is essentially, it's called John, yeah. Okay, John Winston Lennon.
Winston! After Winston Churchill.
Yeah, he's born in 1940.
Yes, because he's a war baby there.
Yeah. Well, gosh, this childhood is really...
It's really messed up.
Chaotic, isn't it?
Yeah, his dad was an Irishman. They met when they were 14, Julia, his mum, and Alf. And he was away at sea a lot, working at sea. So he had the kid. He went to sea and didn't really come back. He became AWOL in the middle of the war. He was sending checks home. In 1944, he just stopped coming home. By the time he did come back, 6 months later, she was pregnant with another man's child who was just a sailor on leave or a soldier on leave. And she sent Alf away. So, it's not actually his fault that he didn't come back because he was at bloody war.
Yeah.
You don't get a check. He might have died. You can't. Or maybe it's that. You assume he's died.
No, I don't think you just no, you don't assume your husband's died because you want to have a baby with somebody else.
So you shag a sailor, a soldier.
I mean, it's fair enough that she was sleeping with another man, I suppose, if her husband had been away for so long. And then she might have got accidentally pregnant and then had it. So now she's having a baby by another man while her husband's away at war.
Yeah.
They're so young, though, as well.
So young.
They're still teenagers here.
She's 15 when she actually had John. Crazy.
And she's from a family of like 5 girls, and they're quite middle class. And like her sister, Mimi, comes into this quite a lot. And she seems to really look down on Julia, her younger sister, because I guess reading between the lines, she probably thinks she's a bit of a floozy. Mimi sounds very buttoned up.
Yes. She's married and they never had kids.
Yeah, and Julia's off, getting pregnant by different men and stuff.
Yeah.
And then so what does happen is that Mimi reports Julia and her new man to social services, saying they're not looking after baby John properly and Mimi wants custody. But first of all, she's turned down, isn't she?
Well, actually, you've missed one out.
Oh, what happened?
When she shagged that soldier on leave, she got pregnant. That kid was adopted away.
Oh, Victoria.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a girl, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah, who came back many years later. But then she met another bloke. They moved in together and they weren't married. So that's when Sister Mimi said she reported her to social services and had John taken away, aged 5. And she looked after John.
Right.
And they didn't have any kids. So that's part of me was like, John's mother, a bit erratic and a wild child, but she still is bloody mother and she obviously loved him and she was great with him. Oh, I don't, all right, maybe.
No, this threw up so many questions that aren't answered in this book because you kind of think, is Mimi being completely unreasonable and an overbearing, jealous older sister?
Yes, because she couldn't have her own kids.
Yeah. Or is she genuinely concerned that John is not being looked after? Is maybe Julia out with her boyfriend being a floozy and drinking every night? That isn't explained in the book. It seems unusual that Mimi would go and report her to social services if there was no cause for concern.
No, we don't know the answer.
But also what happens is that that's not the end of John's relationship with his mum. He goes to Mimi and Mimi's husband at the age of 5, but actually he stays in touch with his mum. They have a nice relationship. Like, mum is very musical, right?
Yeah, it's great. She plays him Elvis, teaches him the banjo.
She bought him the guitar.
Yeah.
She would sit with him for hours and teach him music and stuff. And then she would get all the new Elvis records and they dance together. So even though somehow little John was taken away by his aunt, he still maintained a relationship with his mum.
Yeah, and maybe music became even more of a draw because it was forbidden at Mimi's house.
Yeah, of course it was. She's really miserable, isn't she?
Yeah, she's an awful cow, really. And when he was 15, he formed this skiffle group called the Quarrymen, and they sometimes rehearsed at his mum's house. They'd all cram into the bathroom because it had the best acoustics, and she'd be playing the washboard. So she's like, part of the band. That's so nice. It's so nice to know that.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
So he's kind of having to live in this very staid, buttoned-up house with his aunt, but then he's getting to go and have fun in a music band and hang out with his mum.
Yeah.
I'm still so confused about Mimi's motivations. But
Me
anyway,
too.
It happens and it affects John a lot.
Well, it's just occurred to me that he's been taught already to live a dual life, to go home and pretend to be someone and then go out and be someone else. Because he does that a lot later when he's married with a kid.
He does, but also he hides the music from Mimi, doesn't he? Because he knows she'd disapprove. Even when the Beatles are kind of becoming big, he doesn't tell her everything because she's constantly disapproving of him.
Yeah, so he's raised to lie and sneak about. But he is, though. He actually is.
Yeah, so Mimi has this husband called George. So, because a lot of this book, you forget that Mimi has a husband, because when little John was taken to live with Mimi, she was married to George and he lived there.
He was a father figure to him.
And George was his father figure as he was growing up and he really loved him. And then just oddly, because he didn't drink, he died of a liver condition, didn't he?
Very unexpected and really sudden. And John was 14, so that was his first shock.
Yeah, so that happened. And then I kind of think this is why I try not to demonize Mimi too much, because she kind of is a constant problem.
Yeah.
And I think is she acting out of grief because her husband died unexpectedly?
Oh, definitely.
I think she was a certain personality before this happened because she went and got John off her sister. But then I wonder as well how much George's death affected her as well, because it must have done,
It must have, mustn't it? And then how much did it all affect John? Because they say he passed his 11 plus exam and got into a good school, but he was really disruptive. So that's from 11 he was disruptive.
Right.
So I guess that's just from his not living with his mum. I don't know what.
Yeah.
So he was already disruptive before his father figure died.
Mm-hmm.
And the next shock, of course, is in 1958 when he's 17. His mum, Julia, got run over by a car, by a drunk policeman off duty, actually, who got away with it. And I think it's him getting away with it, no repercussions, was what made him very, very angry.
Yeah.
So he's already a disruptive kid, and then he becomes a very angry 17-year-old who starts drinking and fighting and failing at school.
Oh, it's unspeakably sad. And I'm sure Mimi didn't really deal with it.
Oh, no.
I mean, that wasn't a loving home. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
his love with his mother.
So it's just a real disruptive childhood, which kind of moving into being a young man, that tragedy strikes twice within a year, really, with George going and then his mum dying. Oh, it's really horrible.
It's awful. But he's already had this skiffle band for 2 years. And he met Paul McCartney at the second gig they ever did, which was at a Garden Fete. Oh, you might say it was fate. And they got on straight away because they both loved the same music. So he was in the band. So now you got Paul and John. We don't even care who else was in it. It doesn't matter.
But wasn't George there as well? It's because George was a friend of Paul, right? George Harrison.
Yeah, Paul got George in pretty quick because they were at school together. They met on the school bus.
They're so young at this point, aren't they?
They're so young. They're like...
They're almost still children. I think John is 17, Paul is 16, and George is 15.
Yeah, 15.
When they first meet.
15, 16, really young, yeah. Paul and John really bonded because Paul's mother had died when he was 14 of breast cancer, and that was quite sudden. So, yeah, they both had a massive loss of their mothers, but Paul's dad was a trumpeter and a piano player, and he really encouraged him to get into music, so that's the difference.
But he was jazz, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he kind of frowned a bit at the musical direction little Paul was going in because John was dragging him towards rock and roll, right? Is that right?
Yes.
So they both have musical parents, don't they? Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do, which is cool. Yeah, so George is dragged in. He's the youngest. And his parents are really nice and they're supportive and they're both alive. And so that's nice and stable.
Yes.
Took sandwiches to the Cavern Club, that sort of thing, His dad was a bus driver. They're ordinary working class people, aren't they?
Yeah. And we should say if there's anyone on the planet who still doesn't know, this is all happening in and around Liverpool in England.
Yes, that's true. It's very important. I don't know why, it just is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot was happening musically there, because there was Jerry and the Pacemakers as well.
Cilla Black.
I don't want to say, I nearly said it, I don't like her voice. You can hate me if you want.
I like her voice, actually. But by all accounts, she's a real old bag, isn't she?
Well, I mean, Christopher Biggins would say otherwise, but, I sold her a programme.
Did you?
My first programme I sold when I worked at the Old Vic. She was complaining about the price. Can you believe it?
Yeah, of course she was. No, she's a bag. I've heard horrible stories.
Oh, I have too, actually. But anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was all happening in Liverpool. It was brilliant. Yeah, Cynthia met John.
Art College.
Liverpool Art College. Because he shouldn't have got in. He failed all his exams, but I think the headmaster obviously saw something in him.
Well, it's art college, isn't it? Anybody can get in.
Yeah, you say that, but he's obviously a very talented artist because they talk about how he did caricatures of people all the time and they were amazingly accurate and really exaggeratedly brilliant. He's a brilliant person. Like, that would be coming across to everybody, I think.
Yeah.
They said you're either going to be a billionaire genius or a homeless person, and there's nothing in between.
So he just became a billionaire genius who looked like a homeless person.
Yeah.
So Cynthia's in class at the art college. She's, 17, 18?
Yeah, she's a year older
And
than
one
him.
day in walks this rockabilly with his DA in his drape jacket, being all cool, and he sits in front of her, acting up a bit. And she's like, oh, I wonder who this is. And he's like, hi, I'm John. She says, hey, I'm Cynthia.
Yes.
And there it begins. She's kind of the good girl and he's kind of the bad boy.
That's right.
I kind of get that he acts up a lot.
Oh my God, it's Grease.
It's Danny and Sandy.
It is, isn't it?
Wow, it kind of is, yeah. But, his mum literally died before the term that he went and they met. But also Cynthia's dad had died the same year that John's mum died, right?
Yeah, they're bonded by grief.
Yeah, she kind of had a bit of understanding for him.
Yeah, definitely.
I think where some people were kind of annoyed by John because of his behaviour, Cynthia, through her own experience, could see actually why he was behaving the way he was. Yeah.
She could see the pain, and that it's a mask and all that stuff. She could see it, yeah. She saw the lost soul.
Yeah, so they started hanging out a bit. Their friends thought it was an odd coupling because they were quite different.
Yeah.
But she was intrigued by him and they struck up a friendship which kind of evolved, I guess, into John asking Cynthia to be his girlfriend.
I've got to tell you something else. You know the pub that they talk about where they went all the time between classes and where he went when he first asked her out after that party to come to the pub with us and then he snogged her. I've been to that very pub. Happened upon it in Liverpool. Just up some back street. It's called Ye Crack. And of course, because I'm a child, I always thought that was hilarious because I'm thinking of an ass crack. So I took loads of photos of it. You crack. And then somebody came out and said, this is the pub that John Lennon used to hang out in. And I was like, I can't believe we stumbled upon it. That's so cool. And it's exactly the same. There's pictures of him outside it and it's unchanged to the tile. For me, it makes it so real because I can picture it. I think there's something about Liverpool. I think it's a massive city, but it's quite small in some ways. It's accessible.
I love Scousers. I just think there's something just so entirely endearing about them. And I love the accent. They're just so friendly. I love Liverpool as a city. I think the culture there is as good as London.
Yeah.
There's just a real warmth and friendliness about it that I think you don't get in London.
There is. There absolutely is. I think that's because there's so much of a connection with Ireland. So many Irish came over.
Yeah.
And, it's only across the water, isn't it? And so it's sort of like founded on Irishness. And I agree. It's an amazing city.
And Brookside was the best TV show ever and it never should have ended. I used to watch that religiously. Wow. Yeah, I miss Brookside.
Oh, so they got together, right? And we find out straight away that John has a very frightening temper. He's extremely jealous.
No, he's got a terrible temper and he's quite controlling. And she says John's temper could be frightening. And at times I felt torn to pieces by him. All sense of reason disappeared and his tantrums were awesome.
Obsessive, lost soul. He belittles her, berates her. He's like acid wisecracks. She can't keep it up. He just puts her down. He's a nightmare, right? She's on eggshells all the time. But there's also a lot of laughs, a lot of love, a lot of shagging around the back of here and in the toilet there and anywhere they can because they got nowhere to go. It's a classic teenage love story of the 50s.
Can I just say, when I hear people like talking about John Lennon, obviously he's a international hero.
Yeah.
The way people who don't like him bring him down is by saying he's a wife beater, right? And that's something that I've completely just accepted and understood. Now, what she actually says is like when they were 17, he got very jealous of her one night. Yeah, they went outside, had an argument and he hit her. And then she said, he never hit me again.
Ever.
But
no.
If you believe all these other people...
He verbally punches her out all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that's as bad or whatever, but there's a general thinking about anti-Lennon people that he's a wife beater. And I know hitting somebody once is bad, but it's not what I was led to believe.
Right.
He hit her once when they were teenagers and then he just continued to be an arsehole, but he wasn't physically violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know why I'm making this delineation, but...
He's drunk a lot and his mum's just been run over and driver got away with it. He's hitting everyone. He accidentally hit a girl once and then he stopped.
Yeah. Oh.
But he's still hitting all the boys. He's a boy beater.
Yeah, he is.
But that's just boys. That's just boys for you. Look, he's a messed up kid. And he is a kid. Anyway, so we'll just give the facts. People can make their own minds up.
I mean, it's difficult because she obviously has her own grief because her dad died. And so whereas somebody else might write John off because he's been rude and he's jealous and he's controlling of her, and now he's hit her in the face, whereas I think a lot of people would walk away at that point, she's still understanding him because of this shared grief they have, because they both lost parents at the age of 17. So I think she's making allowances for him, you know. I
do too. Plus she had a really loving family background and she never ever heard her parents argue. So it's not like she's used to arguing, isn't she? She's not that person.
Listen, do you like her? I really like her, by the way. And I know we always have this problem because it's a book that she wrote herself.
I do like her.
But she does. She just seems like a really nice Scouse girl.
Yeah, she's not too Scouse, actually.
Oh, because she's from Point Lake.
Yeah, she grew up across the water. Yeah. But no, I watched a few interviews with her to try and to check it out. And she's a lovely, gentle soul, I think. A nice, kind person. Yeah, she seems that way anyway. But anyway, let's get back to the music.
Yeah.
So, right, they're rehearsing, right? So those boys, Paul and George, they're at the school next door. Okay, at this point, John's 18, Paul's 17, and George is 16. The boys are at school, and they're coming over to the college to rehearse behind this curtain in the canteen. And Cynthia and John are getting chips and then spreading them on the floor, and they're all eating them together, sharing them. And then she's just watching them play and work out tunes, and then more and more writing their own, and she's just watching that all evolve, and she absolutely loves it. It's just so magical to think they're just behind a curtain in a canteen at a college, you know.
That's the nucleus of the Beatles.
Yeah, it's great. And it's the drummer that's always the problem, I think. That's
Oh, they always are.
Yeah. But they didn't have one. Actually, Pete Best, who became their drummer, his mum had a club called Casper's, which was just in the cellar underneath their house. So they made an opening gig there without a drummer. The 300 people. It must have been a massive house, I just realised.
Yeah, right. Did you call it Casper's? Isn't
Casper's.
it called the Casbah?
Casper's, I don't know what to say. Casbah.
Is that just your accent?
Rock the Casbah.
Rock the Casbah.
Is that Rock the Casbah?
No, because that's about the Middle East.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
So anyway, a thing called Johnny and the Moondogs at this point is no longer the skiffle band. John Lennon's really great mate, Stuart Sutcliffe, he was an artist.
Yeah, he's a brilliant artist.
Student, though, was definitely going somewhere, and he absolutely loved him. And actually, John moved in with him. They were housemates, really wacky out there people together. And he made him learn the bass guitar so that he could join them.
Yeah, Stuart wasn't great on the bass guitar. I'm not sure he entirely really wanted to be in a band. He was doing it for his friend, John. Stuart was really an artist. His heart was in his art, not in music. But he was doing it, and he was part of the early band, yeah.
Yeah, he was. And then Pete Best, the legendary original drummer, because it was his mum's place, he got really jealous of the Quarrymen having really great gigs. So he got a band together and learned the drums. And so they hardly got any gigs anymore at Casper's. In fact, they only got him as their drummer in 1960 when they got a gig in Hamburg.
Yeah.
Because they had to have a drummer. So they got him because he was like the only one around.
Yeah, because they were getting auditions at like the Manchester Hippodrome and stuff, but they were failing the auditions because they didn't have a drummer.
Yeah.
Does a skiffle band have a drummer? Like you said, his mum was playing the washboard. Is that the percussion in the skiffle band?
Well, it's all rhythm. Yeah, I guess it is, yeah.
And so they kind of come out of that and they're going towards rock and roll. They need a proper full-on drum set at the back and they just don't have it.
Exactly. So they got Pete in and off they went.
Yeah.
Off they went. I love that George Harrison. It's because they became so famous. George Harrison was 17 and his mum sent him off with clean clothes and a tin of homemade scones to go to Germany. So they went for 6 weeks, which was absolutely huge. But it's really, really interesting reading her descriptions of Hamburg because I've read, I've heard about them before, but it's the details she tells. Like they're all in bunk beds. It's the back of a disused cinema, and they're all in No, it's a used cinema because the showing wakes them up every morning. But it's a disused dressing room. It sounds grim. And there's just bunk beds in it and that you can hardly move around it. And also they used to play for like 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah,
no
right.
stopping. So they had to really improvise around their repertoire and just let a song go on for 20 minutes. So, that got their band so tight. 6 weeks of that, playing 8 hours a night. And they were on amphetamines, it turns out, so they could stay up all night. So the drugs had already started. And just playing and playing and playing. By the time they got back, they flipping tore the place up.
Yeah.
They went back to the Caspers and everyone went... Like, they instantly got girls screaming after that first Hamburg trip. And they'd got this rapport between them as well. And with the audience, they'd take the piss out of them. And
yeah, they were quite chaotic on stage and being entertaining and joking with each other and even eating and throwing stuff. It was...
Yeah.
Well, it's just young guys having a great time. And
yeah, exactly. And they got leather jackets in Germany and leather boots, which, they turn the collars up and they just look wild and everyone was going mad.
I mean, if you think about it, if you're in Liverpool at that time in the 50s, I don't imagine really, the kids are going to these clubs like the Casbah and hanging out. I imagine not many young people got to go to places like Hamburg for leisure. This is after the war. I'm not talking about the war.
Yeah, right. It's close to the war.
Going out there, having a good time and then coming back. I bet then the kids who stayed in Liverpool, when the Beatles then come back dressed in leathers and, have been to Germany and had a successful gigs and stuff, I bet that made them really exciting.
I really bet it did.
Were in Liverpool.
Yeah. It's famously said that this era is the birth of the teenager because before that, no generation ever had any freedom.
Oh, you went from school to middle age?
Yeah, you got married, had kids, got a job. Crazy times, plus the pill. Youth gone wild.
Yeah, and they started getting their own money and a bit of expendable income to go to gigs and buy records. And fashion changed massively, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
17-year-olds would dress like their mums and dads until rock and roll came.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Elvis and that lot in America had already invented all of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the teenage wild thing and the screaming fans and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone says the Beatles did it first, but they kind of didn't. And Frank Sinatra did it first.
I think you'll find that Mozart did it first.
I think you'll find... Hang on. Jesus comes in later, but yeah, Jesus is probably the first pop star.
Yeah.
No, because before that, there'd have been others. What about Caesar? Everyone screamed for Caesar. Oh, the streets were filled
What about the Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Screaming teenagers. Oh, the girls screamed at the dinosaurs.
Oh, they're T-Rexes.
T-Rex. The girls screamed at them. Look, there's always been screaming. And there's always been idols.
Yeah.
But this is just, this generation's thing. I can't help thinking of One Direction. It sort of happened to them. They were a similar age.
Yeah, but that was more contrived, wasn't it?
It was contrived, yeah. They didn't work up to it at all. But they were still boys, and then this stuff happens to them where they can't walk down the street. It's just crazy.
Oh, there's a need for teenage girls to scream. And so there's a need for a constant, evolution of young teenage boys for them to scream at.
Yeah, that's true. And meanwhile, the girls are screaming, but the blokes, they're also going, oh my God, I want to be them, and going out and getting guitars and making the best music you've ever heard because they're inspired. So it's all good.
Well, it's all good, but, because they have girls beginning to scream at them, the fact that John is with Cynthia, it's not really cool for him to have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So she's getting pushed back a bit. And also the girls become jealous of her. Well,
yeah,
some of the
scratching
girls
her
do.
Hair out and that, so scratching her face.
Yeah, she says if she went into the bathroom at one of the gigs and somebody recognised her, she would be called a slag. What's John doing with her?
Yeah.
But she said other girls were nice. Other
Yes.
girls were like, well, if John loves her, then we love her too.
Yeah, but basically she was getting no peace, and that's before they're even famous.
So they're really cool little band going between Hamburg and Liverpool, and they have very localised fame in Liverpool, and they're driving the teenage girls crazy.
Yes.
Are they the Silver Beatles at this point?
They are.
So they changed their name to the Silver Beatles, and they're more and more they're dropping the skiffle sounds, and they would do songs by like Cliff Richard and the Everly Brothers.
Yeah.
And then they're coming back with their leathers, and they're getting more onto the Elvis vibe and do rock and roll numbers,
rock and roll,
which
Little
of course
Richards.
is really stirring the crowd up. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Exactly. And they get the gig at the Cavern Club. Hey, I knew this bloke called Jeff, and he was from Liverpool at exactly the same time. He was the same age as the Beatles. And he used to be at the Cavern Club all the time. And he said to me, one thing people don't know is there was no alcohol there.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting, isn't it? And plus, there was a lot of lunchtime gigs, which they do mention in this book, because girls started queuing in the middle of the night to be at the front. But he said, I was down there all the time, and they'd often come, unload the van, do a gig, load it up again, and go on to another place. They'd often do 3 venues in a night, easily. And he said, I just used to help them unload the van, help them load it up, because they were good lads.
Wow.
Yeah. I said, did you know they were good then? He went, we all knew they were good, but none of us knew they were that good. That's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, but maybe at that moment in time they were just good. I mean, they're gigging a lot. They're still teenagers.
That's
true.
true.
And over the next couple of years, they're really going backwards and forwards, Hamburg, etc. And they're playing a lot. And they're playing 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So they're getting really good.
Yeah, they are.
So they are getting attention from managers and stuff in the industry. And there's a bloke who looks after Marty Wilde and Billy Fury, who are big already, and he's looking for a backing group to go on tour with Billy Fury, and they're so excited about it, but they fail because they don't have a drummer still.
Yeah.
But also Paul, because Stuart Sutcliffe is still with them. Don't forget, this is still before Ringo, and Stuart is playing the bass, but Paul, then because they failed the audition, Paul McCartney blames it on Stuart, saying that he's just no good. But that's not the case. Anyway, because they failed that audition for Billy Fury, who was a big star, but there's this other singer called Johnny Gentle, who I've never heard of, and I love his name.
Never heard of him. Great name.
And they get a job backing him on a tour of Scotland. And Johnny Gentle is driving his own van with the pre-Beatles as his backing band, and they go on tour for a couple of weeks, and Paul McCartney's dad doesn't want him to go because he's doing very well in his exams and he's applied to teacher training college.
That's right.
But luckily, Paul defied his dad and went on tour with Johnny Gentle. Imagine Johnny Gentle. He's probably didn't come to much if neither of us have heard of him. He's probably sat back in his chair saying, I had Lennon and McCartney were my backing band.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
Then they do another stint in Hamburg, and this really is good because they got to be the backing band for a bloke called Tony Sheridan on his record My Bonnie, right? And that could have easily just disappeared. But somebody went into the record shop in Liverpool, it was Nem's record shop, owned by Brian Epstein. They inquired after this record by the Beatles, which it wasn't, but that's what they said. So it perks his ears up. Then a few more people asked for it. So he's going, who are these people then? And he looks them up and he's amazed to find they're from Liverpool and not from Hamburg. And so he goes, right, I'm going to get this record in if everyone wants it. I should go and see him. And he goes to see him in the Cavern and realises their magic. That's another great meeting because he literally saw their raw talent and honed it. He said, right, you've got to smarten your act up. You've got to stop all this banter. You've got to stop playing all the long songs. Just play hits, 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 and then go. Dress smart, suits and ties. They didn't like it, but they knew it was right. Yeah. And he just pulled them into shape.
Yeah.
And he got them going.
He's a little bit older, isn't he, Brian Epstein?
Yeah, he's a bit older.
Yeah, he's got his head screwed on. The record shops belong to his family, but he's kind of getting a bit bored and he's looking for something else to do. This is the amazing thing. Brian Epstein, who brought the Beatles to worldwide fame, had never managed a band before.
No.
And he saw them playing in the Cavern and thought, I'd really like to work with them. And he was asking other people in the industry how you manage a band. I find that astonishing that he wasn't like already a major industry player.
He wanted the challenge and he rose to the challenge. Yeah, it's brilliant.
So, even in Hamburg, they're getting more popular and they're kind of upgrading their venues and stuff. Oh, and Stuart Sutcliffe is seeing this girl called Astrid. a local German girl who's...
She's like their first fan.
Yeah, who's...
Really big fan.
Well,
and friend.
Her boyfriend took her to see this band called the Beatles, and then she ended up dumping him to go out with Stuart Sutcliffe. I bet that boyfriend's like, damn it.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was the one who said to them... She sounds like a really cool character,
she does.
by the way. But she was the one who said to the Beatles, get rid of your DAs.
Quiffs.
No quiffs,
Yeah.
brush your hair down. Yes. So she was responsible for their mop-top haircuts.
She was.
So then when they get moved to this other venue in Germany, they're then playing second to another Liverpool group called Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. And their drummer was a man called...
Ringo Starr. Well, Richard Starkey.
Ringo Starr.
That's near enough.
Richard Starkey.
Yeah.
So they're hanging out with him now and they know him and they see him playing. Anyway, eventually, their drummer problem
And they
is
know
solved.
he's better than Pete Best. They
Yeah.
know. Because, yes, he's filled in for Pete Best a couple of times and they're all like, Jesus, this is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the banter, he just fits in. He's got the right personality. He sees life the same way they do. And actually, that's really crucial, especially when you're all songwriting together,
Yeah.
to have a laugh together. They got on so well. They all went on holidays and everything together, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's amazing to me, the amount they hung out outside the band, because not all bands do
Yeah.
that.
So they're kind of in their little way. They're totally making strides in Hamburg and Liverpool, and now Brian Epstein's come. So he's got the My Bonnie records in his shop and they're selling. And then one day he goes to the HMV store with some tapes of the Beatles because he knows a technician there and he wants to get them pressed into, he wants them properly recorded. And the technician there is impressed enough by the music of the Beatles. And he happens to know a man called George Martin at Parlophone Records.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, George Martin works with the Beatles for the rest of their career. George Martin hears that tape and he's like, oh, gosh, there's real potential here.
He gets them into audition and they're off. That's it. They're off. They press an LP.
Gosh, they record that first LP in 11 hours.
Oh, yeah.
That's insane. But then when you think about it, they've probably been gigging these songs for 2 years now.
They have.
They probably just go in and knock them out live.
Yeah, this is 1962, right? So 3 years ago, they did it live on Radio 2. I think it was about then. It was like the 40th anniversary or something, where they recreated that whole day. I think it was at Abbey Road Studios, I think. And they recreated it from the whole timeline of them recording it, but they used other people, like Ed Sheeran came in and recorded that song, or Adele came in, or people like that. It was epic. And they did it exactly to the minute that the Beatles recorded each song, so that you got a sense of what a massive day it was. And then right at the very end of the day, they said, we need one more song, we need a really good belter, what have you got? And all of them had colds that day as well. By the end of that whole recording, they did it all, I think they did them all in one take, And then, because they were so tight from the Hamburg, and then right at the very end of that day, we need one more. John said, let's do Twist and Shout, because Little Richard was in Hamburg with them, which I was waiting for them to mention and nobody mentioned. And he used to do Twist and Shout, and they knew it because they'd heard it so many times. They said, let's do that. Can we do it? They did a little rehearsal. Yeah, we can do that. And you can hear if they did the one take, and then John's voice packed in. And you can hear it if you hear Twist and Shout. You're like, shaking a baby now. Like, his voice is going, gone.
Oh, really?
And that was the end. That was literally all recorded in time. That was the last one they did at the end of that one day.
Wow.
It's amazing. They are amazing, that band. It changed people's lives. That one album, that one day's work changed people's lives. And we're still listening to those versions today. That'll be on the radio today, all over the world.
Just reading this book, it really made me want to be there at the time as each of these records were coming out. It must have been so exciting.
Yeah, I know.
Because they're all really, really good songs.
Yeah.
I've jumped ahead, but we should just mention that Stuart Sutcliffe stayed in Hamburg because he had a relationship with Astrid. And then the last time the band flew over to play Hamburg, Astrid met them at the airport and she looked really upset, and Stuart Sutcliffe had passed away the day before. He had a brain hemorrhage and he died at the age of 22.
Yeah, I think it was literally 2 hours earlier. She'd gone straight to the airport because they were both going to meet them at the airport. I mean, it was raw. horrifying.
They made a film about him called Backbeat in the 1990s. Yeah, Stephen Dorff played him. I remember it being a reasonably big film. I watched it at the time. I don't remember too much about it.
I never saw it.
I might go back and watch that again now.
I might too. Cynthia mentions it. She said in that film, she's portrayed as this awful girl who tries to trap John by being pregnant. We've totally forgotten to mention that she got pregnant.
Well, she's about to get pregnant
and
now.
Trap John. Oh, okay.
Also, sorry. Also, when I talked about Ringo, I talked about him too early. What I didn't know, this is, I'm learning a lot of Beatles history here, but when George Martin picked up the Beatles and they signed to Parlophone Records, Pete Best was still the drummer.
That's true. And George Martin said no.
No, John and Paul wanted Ringo.
Oh.
And so they said to Brian Epstein, can you tell Pete that he's sacked?
That's right.
And John and Paul, who had been with Pete Best all those formative years, now, at the moment they get their major recording contract, John and Paul don't tell Pete Best to his face.
Yeah, no.
They get the manager to sack him.
Yeah.
That's so out of order.
Cynthia says that's textbook cowardly behaviour of John. He hates confrontation.
Well,
yeah.
It is certainly cowardly.
It is.
So I didn't realise that happened with Pete. I didn't realise he was there at the time they got picked up.
Oh, got kicked out at the signing.
I feel like I want to read his book now if he's got one.
Yeah. It's gotta hurt.
Well, hasn't it gotta hurt? Yeah. I always think about that Spice Girl who went to finish her exams.
Oh, yeah.
Just before they got massively famous, they got Baby Spice in to replace her. I always think about her, think, oh my gosh, she could have been a Spice Girl. But actually, I think we've had this conversation before. Sometimes, like massive things like the Spice Girls and the Beatles really depends on
the right mix.
The mix of the people.
The magic mix. And they wouldn't have been the Beatles without Ringo.
So it was the right combination.
It was.
We now have the Beatles that we know and love, signed to Parlophone, and Cynthia is pregnant. Or has she had Julian at this point? Because I've messed up the story.
Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, at some point, around the time when they took off, she realised she was pregnant. And unbelievably, being as they'd been shagging absolutely everywhere, they'd never taken any precautions at all. They just thought that you were really unlucky if you got pregnant and it would never happen to them. That's absolutely insane. It's amazing it didn't happen earlier. It really is. Mind you, she also wanted another kid and it never happened. So she, there's something wrong there. But yeah, and she didn't trap him into marriage. He immediately offered it and he absolutely loved her. He wanted to marry her.
Yeah, I kind of felt sorry for her at this point because up until that point, she had been travelling to Hamburg and stuff, and she'd been hanging out at the cavern. She'd been very much part of the scene. They had begun to say to her, Cynthia, can you step back? Because obviously the girls are screaming for John and it's better if they don't know that he's got a
That's
girlfriend.
Brian Epstein for you.
Anyway, then she finds herself pregnant. And then just as the Beatles are taking off and they're going and doing exciting things, she's staying at home because she has a baby.
Yes.
So she really feels like she's missing out.
Yeah.
And then to make things worse, Paul McCartney goes out with Jane Asher, which I totally forgot about. And I didn't realise that they were together for such a long time because, of course, we think about Paul with Linda. But, of course, he had a whole life before that.
I actually really am aware of Jane Asher.
Have you really?
Yeah, I've seen her in lots of theatre.
But then Paul got together with Jane. He totally was public with her straight away. He didn't hide her. They had their photos taken together. And Cynthia's like, wow, I totally stepped back for the good of John's career.
Yeah.
And Paul doesn't seem to care, and it didn't affect the Beatles whatsoever.
I wonder if it's because she was working class and then it looks like the wife at home with the kid, whereas Jane Asher was all glamorous and, being an actress and a model and whatever. And maybe it fitted that whole sort of swinging 60s London image better because they weren't married. They were just going out with each other.
So look, let's crack on a bit because we're running out of time already. So Love Me Do comes out and then Please Please Me comes out. And then basically every record they bring out after that is number one after number one after number one.
Straight
I just looked at their discography actually. It's frightening how quickly they become, and then I think basically every single single they release in the 1960s gets to number one.
It does, and they stayed there for months sometimes as well.
Oh, they were even, when they said we got a new single coming out, it would get pre-orders of like 1 million copies, even though people didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you had to have it first. And then they really took off in Britain when they did Saturday Night at the Palladium, because everyone was getting TVs at that point. And then they're all variety. And then when they went to America, they played the Ed Sullivan Show. 74 million people watched that. It broke all TV records.
That's incredible.
Possibly to this day.
That's something that you just couldn't get now. Because people are so divided over what channels and stuff they watch. But I guess back in the day, we just had a few TV channels. Mind you, how many people watched O.J. Simpson? We've just read Kris Jenner's book. How many people watched O.J. Simpson's escape in the car? That was more than the Beatles.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
So we're well and truly in Beatlemania.
Beatlemania. This is absolutely true. Fans gone mad. Right, so there was a proper wives and girlfriends wags thing going on, because George had Pattie Boyd and they were all hanging out together, going on holidays. Oh, it's kind of nice. The swinging 60s was swinging there. Bob Dylan introduced them to weed. You know, Al McCogan's interesting, because Al McCogan's the one that Roger Moore went out with.
I always think of her from a different era to the Beatles. I think of her as kind of like...
She is. She's the 40s and 50s and she was massive. And they thought she was old and past it when they went to her house for a party, but she was the absolute life and soul. Roger Moore said the same thing.
I bet she was only like 29.
Yeah, right. And that's the first time she really suspected John was having an affair. And he obviously had loads of them.
Yeah.
Loads.
So Cynthia's being a very loyal wife to John.
Yeah.
But it is, of course, it's hard. The more famous he's becoming, women are throwing themselves at him. But it's not just that. When they're going to the showbiz parties and stuff, she says at one point, she hides in a wardrobe and Georgie Fame is trying to talk her out. Yeah. And she says, I'll come out when John notices that I'm here.
Notice I'm missing. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, she says, I'll come out when John notices I'm not here, because he's hiding in the wardrobe, yeah.
That's Priscilla Presley, isn't it? Trying to take loads of pills, trying to fake a death because, you know, he's surrounded by fans and it must be horrible. And then she thinks she's ugly and she's insecure and she's not worthy of being there and stuff. No, it's horrible for her.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's still very much a working class girl, and she thinks she has no talent. She's just there because she married a Beatle. So she feels a bit out of place and a bit intimidating. Yeah, well, okay.
To be fair.
Yes, but okay, but then that's a very real feeling for her. She feels intimidated in the swinging 60s.
Yeah.
Being surrounded by all of these glamorous, famous people, you know. I kind of get it.
Yeah, exactly. I get it.
I'd hide in a wardrobe.
Yeah, and if you're not doing music or you're not doing art or you don't have anything to say. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you talk about?
Yeah, and everyone else is amazing. You know, you've got Marianne Faithfull and all these amazing girlfriends that are sort of wild and crazy. And she's not. She doesn't like the weed. She tries LSD, has a horrible time. She's on the... She's more and more getting pushed out, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, at this time, they made Hard Day's Night, the film, and it was a massive hit. That must be mentioned.
Do you know what, as well, was surprising? Not obviously being around at the time, but they made that almost just about a year after they hit it big.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, everything is happening very, very quickly for them.
But it's genius, because the reach of that going into cinemas and everyone can go and see them.
Yeah.
But you know what happened there? When they were filming Hard Day's Night, little Phil Collins went to be an extra and stood and watched Ringo Starr and went, I must become a drummer. There you go.
Wow. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, this is the sort of thing. They're just spawning new geniuses everywhere they go.
So look, we need to jump a few years, but I think people kind of generally know this story.
Yes.
In the 1960s, the Beatles are the biggest band in the world. Cultural phenomenon. Lennon and McCartney are regarded as absolute the best singer-songwriters, and they sell millions and millions of records the whole world over.
Yes.
And Cynthia is at home. I mean, she does complain about being left behind, but actually she does also talk about travelling with them a lot.
She does.
because her sister looks after Julian. Do you know what? If there's one book I want to read now, and I don't know if he's written one, I would love to hear Julian Lennon's side of the story, because I felt very sorry for that little boy reading this.
Me too. So, yeah, I mean, the drugs, she says, the drugs is the biggest thing that pushed them apart, really sent them in different directions. And John got this whole new gang of friends who's always off his head, and this lasted quite a few years, including them all going to India.
I think there's nothing worse, really, if you're married to someone and then they do drugs. Not drugs, if one of you drinks a lot and the other one doesn't. You're just on a different wavelength a lot of the time.
You're not on the same planet.
Yeah, and so that's what's happening here. John is just really getting into drugs. And in all fairness, Cynthia tried it.
Yeah.
And she didn't really like it, which is fair enough.
It is.
And so, the void is growing between them.
Yeah, and John's searching for a new direction, and he's an artist, and a creator, and he needs a new direction, and it does kind of make sense.
And of course, towards the end of the 60s, they're getting into the Maharishis. I forget who started that. Was it George Harrison?
It was George, yeah, because he's really into it. He still is. He's got a Buddhist retreat somewhere in London.
He's dead, Cleo.
Yes.
He's been dead for 20 years.
I meant retrospectively. I'm all in the time of this book.
But actually, no, listen, as Alanis Morissette says, because she went to India, is that you don't equate death with stopping.
Aha!
So who are we to say George Harrison could still very much be doing this now?
He's reincarnated, yeah.
But at this point, Cynthia was quite pleased about this development.
Yes.
Because it was all about meditation. It was all about clean living. And she went and became part of it herself. And she kind of liked this direct. The Beatles had their worldwide fame. They were still very famous, but they'd stopped touring, which, we should also mention as well, Brian Epstein died young.
Yes, he did.
Which was a big shock to them all. So there was a real year of them deciding to stop touring because it was just too exhausting. Brian Epstein died, and so they lost their manager.
Well, they had to stop touring because nobody could hear them. They couldn't even hear themselves. They only toured for 3 years, and during which time they couldn't hear themselves, ever.
Because of the screaming.
So it was absolutely pointless. So, touring only lasted 3 years. Then, after Brian Epstein died, sadly, at only 32, they basically didn't have a manager, so then they formed that Apple company, and they were rubbish at business. And that was all the beginning of the end, really.
Well, they went to India, didn't they? And we know a bit about this because we read Mia Farrow's book, and it's the only episode of our podcast that I always say to people, don't listen to it, because I'm still traumatised.
Yeah.
But she actually says in her book about being up the mountains in India, and then the Beatles turn up. And now here we are with Cynthia
And she had a
Lennon.
lovely laugh with them.
Yeah.
Do you remember how nice they were coming to visit her all the time and being so jovial? And yet Cynthia gets the rough end of the stick because John's pretty much ignoring her. It's horrible. And then he's running down to the post office, she finds out later, every day to look for a letter from Yoko. She's already infiltrating him. She totally tracked him down and got in there.
So Yoko, we haven't introduced Yoko into the timeline yet, but basically she's this avant-garde artist who kind of John meets at some point. But she becomes quite persistent. She actually turns up at their house.
Yeah, a few times looking for him.
Like Cynthia only finds this out later. She's kind of pursuing John, even though she knows he's married with a kid. And it made me wonder, because what it turns out, John really downplays Yoko to Cynthia. When she asks about her, John says, she's just a weirdo, don't worry. And he's admitted to Cynthia a couple years previously that there has been other women when he's been on tour. And Cynthia kind of accepts it. Obviously, she's not happy about it. But, he's a world-famous rock and roller. Of course, he's going to sleep with other women. But anyway, they have that conversation. She makes her peace with it. And then when they talk about Yoko, he says to her, don't worry, Cynthia, she's no more important than any of the other girls. So, he has been sleeping with her, that tells me.
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, he's not being honest with Cynthia. Well, I guess it's like anybody having an affair. You don't admit it to your wife, do you?
No, of course not. But she then goes to Italy for 2 weeks. John sends her there with a few others, like Donovan, people like that. And when she comes back, she literally comes back in the house, going to take John out for dinner and with friends. And there's John and Yoko sitting in toweling robes with food on the table, just sitting cross-legged, staring at each other.
Yoko's in her dressing gown.
Yeah, and she doesn't even turn around to say hello. I'm like, get lost. Oh, it hurts. It's horrible.
Oh, it's so weird.
And John then, after that, is loving and he wants it all to work out between them. But of course, basically that's just the beginning of the end.
It's so weird. So the poor Cynthia, sorry, I need to get my head around this.
Yeah.
Poor Cynthia has been on holiday. She thinks John's in America, by the way. Anyway, Cynthia walks in, finding Yoko in her dressing gown, in her house with her husband. And then she's so shocked, she kind of just says, "Oh, John, we're going out to dinner. Do you want to come?" And John just says no. And then Cynthia leaves, and she's so upset that she goes and stays with Alex and his wife. And Alex is kind of like a assistant stroke friend of John's. And she's so upset, she goes to their house for a couple of days, and they've just come back off holiday, so the wife goes to bed and Cynthia stays up with Alex, and they drink a couple bottles of wine, and Alex says to her, "Cynthia, I've always been in love with you. Can we run away together?" And Cynthia's like, "Where the hell has this come from? This is so bizarre." And then she goes to bed drunk, and she says Alex comes into the room trying to have sex with her. Anyway, the next morning, it's all very confusing. She stays with them for another day. And when she goes back to the house, John acts as if nothing has happened. And he actually says to her, "Oh, hi, where have you been?"
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of mind games are you playing?
You're playing those mind games
Ah!
forever.
Wow, you see, we just need to listen to his albums to find out all
And
the
you
answers,
find
don't
out
we?
everything. Yeah. Then he sends her off to Italy for 2 weeks, and then accuses her of having an affair and files for divorce on account of her affair, which she has not had.
With Roberto.
Yeah, she has not had an affair. And the next day, after he's filed for divorce, he's out with Yoko in the newspapers. It's just a poor excuse, and it's rubbish. It's rubbish behaviour.
Oh, my God. So poor Cynthia is in Italy. That Alex turns up and says John is filing for divorce, and she's so distressed that she sends Julian home with her sister, and Cynthia gets very ill, and she's lying in bed in Italy, and this woman is having to bring her tea and cold towels, and then she looks at the newspaper and there is a picture of John and Yoko on the front page.
It's really cruel.
I mean, they're arseholes. John and Yoko are arseholes.
Yeah, they really are around this time. Yeah.
It just also makes me think that they were together a lot longer. John has been lying to Cynthia.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's not like a new relationship they've gone public with. That's been going on for a while, and they were waiting for their chance to go public. And do you know what? Neither of them did the right thing. Neither of them sat down. Well, Yoko didn't have to, but John never sat down face to face with Cynthia and said, "Cynthia, I'm really sorry, but I've fallen in love with Yoko and we're over." He did it in such a cowardly way. Here we are again. He's a coward.
He is a coward, yeah. He fired her. He fired her without telling her himself, basically. Got the lawyers to do it. It's bollocks.
Yeah.
And then she finds out Yoko's actually married with a little girl near the same age as Julian called Kyoto.
Yeah.
And the husband eventually ran away and took the kid. And she didn't see her for years. I looked her up. They got back in touch, but... anyway, that's another whole story. Then this book just goes into all the misery. Like, she got cut off from the whole Beatles family and her friends. She got paid £75,000 because he said, "You're not worth any more," which is so horrible.
I was trying to figure out if that was an inflation thing, because that seems like such a weedy amount of money. And I thought, well, maybe it was worth 10 times more 50 years ago. It wasn't even 50 years ago, was it? It probably was.
Oh, maybe.
But no, I don't think it was. I think he was being very mean. And it said when it went to the divorce court, it said that his personal fortune was £750,000. Well, that can't have been true. So they were stiffing her,
yes,
weren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, she got stiffed and diddled.
She totally was stiffed and diddled. Big time.
Oh, I haven't heard that for a while.
It's true.
Poor woman.
I know. Oh, it's also a real shame because John bought her mum a house, and John bought his own aunt a house and his sisters houses and stuff when he was minted rich. He did loads of stuff like that. But after he died, it turns out that was all still under John's estate, which therefore fell to Yoko. So all these people had to leave their houses, got their houses taken off them.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't nice enough to just let them have them.
Wow.
And that's another whole conversation we need to have of Yoko being a fucking bitch.
Do you know what? I try not to demonise Yoko Ono too much because everyone's
I'm really
always
trying
hated
not
her.
to.
Everyone's always hated her.
I know, but then you read all this stuff.
I know.
And you're like,
I know, but this is the book written by John's first wife, and she's talking about his second wife. But when you just bring it down to the bare facts...
She's rotten.
Yoko does seem quite rotten. I hate to say it, but...
She is not a good person. I've never hated her. I've never had cause to. I didn't know her. Reading this book, the things she did, like, okay, let's skip to... In 1980, John is shot dead. He's 40 years old. After John's shot, Julian seems to be the loveliest person ever. Kind and gentle.
I love Julian Lennon.
Yeah. And she took him in the music room in the Dakota building that was full of guitars, the pianos, all the instruments that John owned, and said, I'd like to give you one guitar from your dad. You know, that's one thing he would have had of his, one. And he said, I'd love this one. It's a nice guitar. And he remembers his dad playing it. She said, no, you can't have that one. You can have this one, a boring one that he didn't have any emotional connection with. And that wrote her off to me. Just that one thing.
Okay, yeah.
That did for me. I thought, as the day after your dad's been shot or whatever, come on. Are you having a laugh?
Yeah.
Oh. And she had several hundred millions left to her. You can't give his son a guitar he wants. I was livid. That made me mad.
So we need to rattle along a bit.
We've got to skip the years that John and Yoko spent together, which was quite a lot, maybe 10 or so. And they had a kid, Sean, and they lived in New York. They actually spent a few months in Bermuda just before he died, and he got his mojo back and wrote Double Fantasy, which was his last album. And then he got shot outside the Dakota building from some deranged fan he'd given his autograph to earlier in the day. It's awful. And whilst you're in the middle of all this sadness, you just start getting really angry about Yoko Ono being a cow.
No, but hang on. Right, you know me trying to understand everyone. Yoko was there when he got shot. The shock and the grief and, yeah.
Oh, no, it's awful. It's awful. I remember I've seen a programme, she had blood on her. It was awful. But she still excluded his other son.
Yeah.
You know, she made a statement from Yoko and Sean and excluded him. He's a kid.
Well, he was 17 because the irony of that is that both his mum and dad, John and Cynthia, both lost parents when they were 17, and now Julian has as well.
It's horrible. But meanwhile, you know, John also had totally abandoned Julian from 1971 to 1974, and then every time he visited, he was distant. In fact, this whole book starts with a foreword from Julian where he says, it's really difficult for me because everyone comes up to me and says, I loved your dad's amazing. And he said, to me, my dad was distant, he was cold, he often made me feel unworthy, unloved, ignored me, he was scary, angry at me, and that's the person I knew, and it's very different from the man everyone loved, and I'm really, really pleased my mum's writing this book to get the truth out.
Yeah.
That's the foreword. I was like hooked in at that point. I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting.
And like Cynthia says, you know, the world view of John at that point, he'd written Imagine,
yes,
which
it
has
was
become
all
a
about
global
peace and
anthem
love.
for peace and
Yeah.
love, and the loving they did in the beds and stuff. And he was doing all of that publicly, and yet he wasn't seeing his infant son for years.
No, and younger Julian was saying, how come my dad seems to love everybody, telling everyone to love each other, but he doesn't love me?
Yeah, and then
That's brutal. And it's his confidence that suffered. He thought he was worthless.
Yeah, I'm
terrible.
very intrigued to read a longer account of Julian Lennon's life. I think there's a real story there, and he has my entire sympathy, you know.
He does have mine, yes. Oh, we've got to not end on a sad note.
I know, let's not end on a sad note.
Well, I guess we should just let it be.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast, and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. You could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us, or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.